Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal branding and business development company. I want to take you on a journey that takes another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal story, business conversations, and tips to improve your personal brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand podcast series, you will be able to differentiate yourself from the competition and allow you to build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build trust, and reflect who you are. Developing your 5-star personal brand is a great way to demonstrate your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh, spelled M-C-G-A-U-G-H, at 5-star BDM, B for brand, D for development, M for masters.com. Now let's begin with our next 5-star episode on Follow the Brand. Hello and welcome to your number one podcast station. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, host of the Follow the Brand podcast. It is an honor for us to tell the story of a recipient of over 320 international awards on design and branding. David Brier has the rare distinction of being presented the Presidential Ambassador for Global Entrepreneurship medallion. A native New Yorker and Google's number one ranked rebranding expert, David's 4 decades of branding expertise are sought after by companies of all sizes, from startups to global organizations, and every industry demanding an unorthodox edge in today's business climate. In addition to being a branding and rebranding expert and keynote speaker, David is the best-selling author of his number one Amazon book, Brand Intervention: 33 Steps to Transform the Brand You Have into the Brand You Need, with a foreword written by Shark Tank star and CEO of FUBU, Daymond. Applauded by the likes of New York Times bestselling author of Pitch Anything and multimillion-dollar dealmaker Oren Klaff, David is called a branding genius by billionaire Grant Cardone, and Shark Tank's Daymond calls him brilliant with branding. Claude Silver, Chief Heart Officer at VaynerMedia, Gary Vaynerchuk's agency, wrote of his best-selling book, "This is not only an outstanding book on branding, but is an excellent example of branding design and content I keep in my office, and I only wish I had this book at the beginning of my career." David and his work have been featured in Adweek, Fast Company, Forbes, Inc. Magazine, Huffington Post, Entrepreneur, Thrive Global, and the New York Times, and numerous blogs and podcasts around the world. When you have a goal to become a design expert, you must learn how you are perceived by others. Focusing on your brand message will help you gain trust and cooperation with your team of high-performing executives. Let's welcome David Brier to the Follow the Brand podcast, where we are building a 5-star brand that you can follow. Welcome, everyone. This is the Follow the Brand podcast. And as always, we have a special guest, but we're going to go a little bit above the noise today, bringing on a brand expert. He has been in this industry for a number of different years. You've probably seen him on some other shows that, like one of my counterparts, Grant Cardone. I mean, like, wow, he's on Grant Cardone. You see him he's one of the sharks now. You got one of the sharks looking at you with a Daymond and all these different people. So there's some buzz out there around David Brier and what you do. And I'm glad you're on the Follow the Brand show, because I want to get a little bit, just kind of pick your brain a little bit, show us how we can be more impactful, what we're doing here as entrepreneurs, as well as career development, business development, and all the things that are necessary to make a brand effective. So without further ado, let's bring up David Brier.
Thanks, my man. I appreciate it. And since you mentioned Grant, so I mean, obviously, if you and Grant get in the same room, I mean, he's got 10X, but then you would have like G2. I mean, you kind of have a thing going there.
I love it. I love the G2. I'm gonna have to remind him of that. So Grant, works for me. Hopefully It works for you.
So let's start out with some simple questions. You know, a lot of this stuff you can look up on the internet and you can say, oh yeah, I know where you're from. I kind of know how long you've been in the business. But my first question I want to know with you is, why branding? Why did you do this? What got you going with this?
Well, okay. So the short answer is that growing up in New York, I was surrounded by a lot of the things that one can enjoy in New York. So, you know, food, culture, art, music. I loved all of that. I loved being surrounded by all that. And I really took that in. And for me, there was always a matter of what was the thing that got me to stop? You know, did I walk by a deli and there was like a smell coming out of the deli that made me stop? Did I walk down the street and there was a street performer doing something, or went to a gallery or a museum and I'd see something and it, like, you know, why was I gravitated toward this thing? So to me, there was always a matter of like, my attention would get arrested by something that disrupted the normal kind of pattern and pace of life or other stuff that I was enjoying at the time. And so that really was probably the underlying little strand of, I found that I lit up when that happened for me. And I observed other people lighting up when it happened for them. And so I took my artistic skill, started to get into design and embracing the marketing and the branding, because I like waking people up.
You woke me up. We had this little conversation even before, just going to your LinkedIn profile and just seeing that video presence, and you're telling a story that is so intriguing that it just brought me in to the fold, right? I was like, oh, this guy is a guy I've got to talk to. I've got to jump out of these planes pretty soon myself and get that on film. So it's going to show me how to do that trick. But you know, one thing I learned, and I learned this like a couple of years ago, and I did not know this about New York. I was talking to some New Yorkers, and they're telling me, you know, the one thing I could not live without during the first days of COVID, you know, that first couple of months when everybody was locked down. And I said, what was that? You know, what are you talking about? You know, was it the pizza? I mean, like, no, Grant, it's the bread. I have to have the bread. You don't understand. It's not just any bread. It's the bread. If without the bread, I might as well just, it's not worth it. Yeah. So that's some powerful branding, because you've got to like the bread, the smell, the whole experience is happening, that it's addictive for people. So like their coffee or the thing that they have to have, New Yorkers. I said, wow, bread, I didn't realize it. So tell me this, like, if there was one thing that you wish you had known before you began your career, as you look at it now, what would that have been?
It would have been me leaning over, whispering into my ear, saying, the person that you're talking to also has dreams and aspirations. Make sure to not ignore those, you know, because the reason I'm saying that is because I think everybody in the beginning of their career, what are they focused on? They're focused on leaning in, making sure they're giving it their all. If they have the entrepreneurial leanings, they're going to be giving it their all. They're going to be freaking leaning into it big time. Mm-hmm. You know, they want to make their mark. They got to get on the radar. There's got to be some recognition. There's got to be some, you know, they're going to get some press. You know, all these things, all these key little things that say, yes, you are a valid part of this now, right? And, you know, I can't say that I know that the same is true for those who are in a career path, but if they have big dreams in terms of their career, I think it's going to be similar. If their goal is like, hey, just to get a steady job, they may not have that. I mean, just like to get a steady job and a steady paycheck, that's like very predictable, a very routine. It's kind of like you clock in, you clock out, right? So it probably has a different dynamic, but that's the thing for me. That's the thing for me is just, you know, I don't know. I mean, I love it. I love all that. I love the energy and the buzz and the leaning in.
You got to tune in to other people and their story. That's one of the reasons I do follow the brand. I probably did 30, 40 episodes, but even before that, I found that when I tuned into other people's stories, their passions, their true passions. Like, I understand you're here now. A lot of times I'm interviewing, a corporate executive or something to that effect. And then I see them in a position now, but how did they get there? What was their story? And it's always intriguing. It's always different. You're always like, I didn't see that coming. I thought you just rolled out of bed and you were just an SVP. Like, no, Grant, I did this, I did that. I was in a completely different industry and I ended up here. However, that passion and that drive was always consistent. They might have known exactly what they were looking for, but they knew they had to get there. They wanted to do that. So as I look at you, like,
there's great power. There's terrific power in that, because the bottom line is, it's one of the questions I kind of like ask myself and ask others. It's like, so was the room bigger when you left than when you arrived? Because if it was not, you didn't do your job, right? Your job is to show up, fill it with energy, fill it with life, fill it with vitality, make the space bigger, open up the minds, open up the hearts, open up the eyes, so that those in that room are lit up, and that room is better off with you there than it would have been had you not been there.
Oh, well said. Well said. So now I want to ask, when did you start lighting up the room? What got you from this local, there's a lot of people doing marketing. There's a ton of, bunch of people doing marketing, right? People doing branding, they're brand this, brand that. But something about you was special. Tell me the story as when you started to see it grow and expand exponentially.
There probably were a few plateaus. Let me see. I mean, I'm just trying. I mean, there are a few different plateaus, but I would say my first taste was early on in my career, probably about 85, 86. And I was new in my career. I've been doing what I've been doing for a few years at that point. And I ended up looking at, I want to get my work out there. I want to get it known. I want to get it seen in the right context. So what I want to do is, if I approach a printer and I approach an illustrator, and I approach a photographer, and I approach, this is when typesetting was actually done outside, not on our computers, but actually there was an entire industry that did typesetting, so typesetter. So like getting all these different parts to the piece of what it would take if we all worked collaboratively as one unified, hey, we're going to get something out there. Let's produce a magazine. I would be the one responsible for it. And so I put out this thing called Graphic Relief, a quarterly indulgence. That's what I called it. And it was large. I mean, the thing was like about 12 inches by 18 inches in size. And it was just really beautifully done, beautifully produced, very artful. And that's when I started to win some first awards and things to really start get recognition. And it was really hard to ignore. And it kind of blew people's minds. I remember years later looking at that saying, boy, did I have some cojones to like come up with that? I mean, I was fresh, and new in my career, and I'm approaching these people, and people are agreeing. They're going, that's cool, because none of us could individually do that, but collectively we could actually lean into it and do that. And that was great. So that was like my first taste that got me to go, something special can be done here.
Well, let's unpack that a little bit, because what I heard there is that you found your brand, you found yourself, you started doing some collaborations, high level, in New York City, you said you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And you put out a voice that was heard in 86. So when you if you had somebody say, define your brand, Mr. Brier, what would you say?
Well, I would say basically, I'm in the business of helping entrepreneurs and business owners actually slay the mundane and articulate the awesome and to shred any little molecules of obliviousness that the world has on what they can be.
Wow, the framing of self and one's endeavors. I love that, and I'm seeing that you've accomplished that. I love your tagline, above the noise. I had used that in one of my first podcasts that I did back in June, and I hadn't listened to anything that you had done, but I had said that because you got to get above the noise. People was like, "Why are you doing podcasting, Grant?" I said, "Well, you can only email people so much and call them on the phone so much before you just kind of fade in to something like that." I'm in the IT sales professional. That's usually like the standard way of getting noticed, right? Which is really kind of played out. So then how do you use social media? Well, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you get to a point where you're being heard? And it's something clicked for me just this past year. Said, do a podcast, show your expertise, talk to interesting people, bring interesting people to the fold, and have value, to your game. So my question for you is that what problem are you really solving for these individuals? What are you solving for them, and what are you passionate about solving with your skills?
Well, what I'm passionate about, what I'm solving is I'm solving the problem that business school or schools in general have actually never had on their curriculum. How do you actually, if you've done the hard work, like I know of no university in the world that answers this question. If you've done the hard work to create a brilliant product or brilliant service that can actually, in a small way or maybe a big way, revolutionize that industry, how do you do that? And actually, how do you convey that in words and image and story? How do you do that? Because the bottom line is that, here's another thing that again, I don't think this is taught in any university in the world. Entrepreneurs don't know their primary role. They're in the role of actually changing minds. You and I know, we've all been approached by salespeople who they're blah, 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 blah. They were parroting some script and they were giving you the same old crap that you've heard 5, 20, 50, 100, 200, 500 times before. That's not going to achieve anything. And they also think that that they're in the arm wrestling business rather than in the helping business. So they're in the business of one, helping, and two, it's like if there's no way that any entrepreneur, how are they going to get a prospect to come to a new conclusion if they're actually using old ideas? You can't get a prospect to go, wow, I just realized something, by them hearing the same old thing that they've heard before, whether it's by a salesperson or by branding. So the job that we're in, we're here to make the world a better place. We're here to actually benefit people. We're here to elevate how things are done, and sometimes it's in a very niche market and sometimes it's a very, very big and broad. But the bottom line is it's exciting. And why the hell are we using the language of the old to introduce the new? Business is about stuff that's new
and exciting, and actually propels you forward. We're all on a journey. Yeah. Every single one of us, every day we're on our journey. It's up to you to make your story interesting, right? That's and if your story is interesting, it'll be interesting to others. Mm-hmm. And allowing other people to tell their story, it is a journey in delight, I think. Just like now, I am delighted by talking to you and learning more about what your beliefs are, and how you should conduct your life and live your word. Because I've been, personal branding is, you've got to step back from, think about all the imagery and all the things you get with marketing. Step back and see yourself before anything is on canvas, before anything is created, and then you give birth to that idea, and then you shape it and mold it and perfect it and get it to a point where it's actually ready to be born. How do you feel about that?
This episode is brought to you by 5-Star BDM. 5-Star BDM is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for small to mid-sized businesses and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement in operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our 5-Star business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. The result is more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Please visit www.5starbdm.com to learn more and view all the episodes of Follow the Brand.
Well, I mean, the bottom reframe. There's one part of your question I don't feel like I fully understood. I want to make sure I get it right.
Well,
give me the framing of that again.
The main essence of what I'm talking about, what I want to know is about your beliefs and how you think we should live our life, conduct our work, things that you need to do when you're going to take on a new project, new endeavor. How do you step back? What's the executive execution, that before execution, really, the strategy you have to take place to get there?
Well, the bottom line is one, I've got to know that my client is willing to look. I mean, let's get real fundamental. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if I'm talking to someone and they're stubborn and they're like, my way's the right way, and this is this and this is that, and and they're not adaptable, I can't help them. Number one, they could have the most outrageous thing. They could have their checkbook open, say you fill in the figure. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I'll walk away.
Right.
Because there is not the fundamental foundation because, and why is that? The reason being, to the extent that the stuff that we are creating together, I mean, yes, I'm doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but it's definitely collaborative. The stuff that we're doing, if it always remains David's idea and doesn't transfer over to being their idea, that's a problem, because then that entrepreneur will not be able to own it as their idea to now transfer it to others for them to make it their idea. I mean, it's like, there's got to be that level of ownership. It's kind of like a great athlete. If it's always like, if they're on the freaking basketball court and they're like, oh, that's always his ball, like whoever is, let's say the lead player, like the top MVP, right? It's always his ball. Well, you got a freaking losing team right there. You don't even have a team. To call it a team is an act of generosity, right? So the thing is, it's like, no, it's our ball, right? It's our court. This is our game. Right. And that is our opponent. And we're playing with them and we're going to exhibit damn good sportsmanship. That's why yesterday, I mean, my wife and I were watching a football game yesterday, and I'll leave the team names out of it so that way people don't get all like, right. But it was one team I couldn't stand because I don't think they exhibit good sportsmanship. They are, after the play is done, I notice that they'll go after a really hard hit. And so they'll follow through. They won't see, even if the opposing team was, out of bounds, they'll still go, 25 miles an hour bashing into them. And I'm going, and I didn't want them to win. And thankfully they didn't at the last final finale of the game. But that was basically the thing that happened. And I was like, okay. I was like, all right. So, to me, it's good sportsmanship. I always love a great entrepreneur, a great leader, a great athlete, a great artist who can recognize the greatness and value of others too, even though they're an opponent, even though they may be an opponent. It's like, hey, we're both vying for the same thing. It's like maybe we're both going for that account. Okay, you know what? I wish you the best of luck. And I also, want you to lose, but I wish you the best of luck.
Well, you got to do that. Business is it's a sport, right?
It's an extreme sport.
Extreme sport, and you play it to win. But especially if you're in a particular industry or niche, you do see the same players. So you're competing with some of the same people. Sometimes they're on your team, and sometimes they're not on your team, depending on what's done. But at the end of the day, are we creating good work as an industry? Are we making a difference? And I see, like, even today, there's such, with COVID, there's such a emphasis on the digital reality. What you described earlier, how you got to that next plateau and you were doing print work and that type of thing. Think about now that, you got tools available to just about anybody if they took the time to create, something visually appealing. But even you're still trying to pull it all together. So the question comes down to the problem that you're solving with your particular brand, your particular company. How are you helping entrepreneurs today?
Multiple ways. One is I about 4 years ago, I decided to put out my book, Brand Intervention. Daymond John wrote the forward to that. Within 2 days, it became an Amazon bestseller. It is not designed or nor does it read like any other book out there. My font size is about 3 times the size of anybody else's font size, just because my whole goal, I personally was very frustrated with seeing the books out there. I hated reading 250 to 300 page business books to only find the special 10 pages that all that you really needed to know buried somewhere. I was like, well, if I was signing up for a buried treasure expedition, that would have been nice to know it up front. So my thing was, I didn't want to have any fluff or any fat, like nothing. So my stuff it's covers 33 points. It covers the exact points that have resulted in well over $6 billion in sales for my clients around the world. So that's one way. I wanted to make myself kind of like available 24/7. So that was one way I did that. Then following that, when 2020 hit with COVID, and like everybody, it was like, the world changed, and you're going, man, how am I going to adapt? How am I going to pivot? How am I going to do this? While continuing to do work, I took 9 months and actually created a masterclass mentorship program. And to date, I put 63 entrepreneurs around the world through the program, and they have generated in excess of, since graduating, $70 million in sales and since they actually completed the program.
Wow.
So, so that's another way that I'm helping. That's all separate in addition to working with clients directly because I have clients, from everywhere from California to Boston to Massachusetts to Florida to Stockholm to all over Australia, all over the place.
I tell you, David, I want you to help my industry. Information technology. I don't know if you've looked into the field. I think they have some of them. I'm going to say all of them, but a lot of them have terrible branding.
Yeah.
I mean, they're awful. They always start with these solutions, and they haven't even talked about the problems. They don't talk about the problem or something like, we do all this great stuff. You're like, well, great, but that doesn't help me. That's not my problem. Right. So do you ever work with IT companies at all?
I mean, I work with technology companies. I mean, IT specifically, not specifically, but I've worked with numerous technology companies, that I've built a couple technology brands in Australia. I built a technology brand in out of Florida. That if you know security awareness training, if you know that, Know Before, the company Know Before.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah,
that's my brand. I basically nice. I developed with Stu in the beginning. We went from $0 startup to $1 billion valuation in 8 years.
Nice.
So but it's knowing the conversation to have. I mean, the biggest problem with engineers and geeks is that they think that what they're doing matters. I'm the guy that comes along and says, nobody gives a damn what the hell you're doing. What they care about is they care about the outcome.
True.
To understand the outcome, you need to be able to understand people. To understand people, you have to actually shut up and listen and realize that your knowledge is not the only most important thing that counts here. And all the zeros and ones and spreadsheets and analytics and all that kind of stuff. No, the bottom line is here's how it works. People are built, and yeah, there's a technology company that we're literally, I can't go into stuff because of an NDA, but out of Stockholm, we're dealing with rebrand, and it's fascinating because it really punches up the point that everyone today, people know how they feel when they're going through the buyer's journey in the sales process, no matter what, whether it's B2B, B2C. This is not limited to B2C. If anybody has the idea that this is limited to B2C with business to consumer, you are mistakenly wrong, and you could not be more mistakenly wrong. Bottom line is there's always a person at the end of the decision-making point. And yeah, the criteria is different for business than it is for personal, but that doesn't change the fact that you need to know what's going to unlock the door to them going, oh, this actually matters. How do you move them from a no to a maybe to a yes, and actually change the position on where their allegiance previously was, provided that you're really going to provide them something better. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying sell something that's not legitimately going to benefit them, but that's the basic stuff, man. I mean, I love working with geeks because I get to de-geekify them. It's like an exorcism. It's that's basically what happens.
It's probably what has to happen. I've told them, I've had this conversation. I say them, some people, my peers, colleagues, people I work with on a daily basis. And the fact is, I tell them all the time, I said, nobody cares how a cell phone works. They care how to use it. They need to know that I can talk to David by pushing in these numbers. I don't need to know really how it all works in the back end. I hope it does. And that's great. And if it doesn't work, then guess what? Look at your competitor. I get that. But some of the messaging that goes out there is bad. But if you think IT is challenging, wait till you start to do branding for a hospital.
Oh, I know. I know. No, it's worse. It's worse because, and this is my experience. I mean, this is from experience. I've had the misfortune of dealing with people in the medical profession, as well as lawyers. I've actually branded a couple of law firms in my time, and it's very challenging to deal with people who have a lot of diplomas on their wall because they're convinced. They've drunk their own Kool-Aid. They're convinced that they are, because now they have all of these recognitions and cum laude this and whatever like that, that transfers to any other area of life. No, it doesn't. And I will go head to head. I love going head to head. I love when one of those little ugly gremlins sticks his head up and goes, "Oh yeah, and I." It's like, you know what? Here's the deal. I am not sitting in this room just by accident. You invited me here. Now, if you're going to actually make believe like I'm not here and your intelligence is going to replace the conversation that we should be having, then I will know where the door is and I can now leave.
Yeah.
And that's where the person goes, oh, no. But you got to call them out. And it takes a while, I think, for someone to be able to artfully call someone out without completely decapitating them and alienating them. I mean, you could actually become really good friends. It's like you really become good sparring partners, No,
and you say that right, because you know what you know, right? And I'm sure that this other individual, they know what they know. No, not about it. I'm not going to tell you how to run, let's say, a hospital or develop new IT software. But if you're asking me to brand and get your messaging, correct across the different channels and connect you with your audience so they buy your stuff, then, maybe you want to sit down and listen, right?
That's right.
So we're getting to the end of our episode. This has been phenomenal because I wanted you to have an opportunity to, first of all, be yourself. Let's get down to, let's take all your accolades off the wall and all your compliments and all that kind of thing, because we all know that you're only as good as your next project.
Yeah.
So I'm going to unplug. I'm going to let you talk to my audience. I've got an audience out here who's eager to learn, to listen. And I see this so many different times when I talk to different people. They have projects, they want to do things, but they don't want to do the hard work, meaning the strategy. They put the strategy before they execute. And they think it's so easy. I just throw up a website, I'll just create some content. I'll just throw this out there without taking that journey up to the top of the mountain and really do some soul searching, So you'd like to take the mic and just kind of talk to our audience about that a little bit.
Well, it's something that I can talk to because I've seen it up close and personal with when I talk to a client, for example, when I talk to a client that hey, David, we'd love to talk to you about helping us brand, blah, 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 blah. I say, okay, good. Tell me about your brand. Da, da, da. Tell me why here's one of my routine questions. I'll say, tell me why I, as a prospective customer, should give a damn about what you're offering me. And then they say, oh, well, we this and because of this, and then feature, and we and I and blood, sweat, and tears, and 14 divorces ago, and and this and that, and alimony, and infidelity, and all this kind of stuff, and drunken nights, and sober mornings, and all that. I'm like, okay, good, thank you very much. Now, why do I know that if I went to one of your competitors, or when I went to several of your competitors, I'd pretty much hear the same thing? How great they are, how earnest they are, how committed they are, blood, sweat, and tears, the best in the industry, life-changing. No one's going to care about them like we do, blah, 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 blah. Why am I going to hear the same thing? I said, do you see that as a problem? And then all of a sudden they go, oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I guess that is a problem. See, they never looked beyond their navel. That's the problem. So whenever anybody is in the business of being in business, whether it's career or whether it's an entrepreneurial endeavor or it's building an empire, I've had, and I don't say that lightly. I literally had one of my clients take me out to lunch and say, David, thank you. And I'm like, for what? Well, because of the work you did for us, I was personally, and this is the CEO telling me personally, I was personally able to donate $50 million to causes that I support. And that's because of your work. And it was at that point that I realized I have the ability to help dreams come true. I have the ability to actually help empires be built. Because if you can't navigate your way in the world of where there's lots of stories and there's lots of claims and there's lots of noise, if you can't navigate your way through that to be heard with clarity and distinction and traction, you're wasting your time. Your dreams are what's at stake, and you are letting those things die. You're basically just if they were in ICU, you're basically pulling the plugs on those suckers right there. So that's the thing that I love about this game, is because I get to help my clients recognize, holy crap, I've been using ordinary tactics to try to lead an extraordinary life. And by me asking the questions I ask, they all of a sudden realize I am so ill-armed to actually fight this battle, to leave the mark that I intend and want and should leave in this world. And then they light up, because now all of a sudden they're going, okay, I'm freaking Rambo, right? I got the sweat on my brow. I got the long freaking hair. I got the ammo across my chest. Now it's a matter of like, good. Now you can shoot at something. Now
right. Yeah, you got to disarm them and get them into, like I say, get them out of context.
Yeah.
So I learned that a while ago. The best place for me to meet certain people is to meet them out of context, where they're not expecting you to meet them, and you have a differentiated conversation. And a lot of times, like you said, man, I never thought of it like that. I never stood back and looked at it and really could see beyond these faded glasses, where we're going.
Yeah.
So thank you for that insight. So if they want to get in touch, what is the best way to get in touch with you, David?
Best way is, for sure, my website, risingabovethenoise.com. That's RASING, risingabovethenoise.com. But also, I would say, LinkedIn, I spend, that's where they can get a very regular dose of, there's a real regular dose of content that comes there practically every day of the week. There's plenty of other places, but that's the thing. It's like, check out, go to the website, find the stuff that's there to be had. There's almost over 300 actual, like, visually stimulating and thought-provoking and myth-busting articles and posts that help you look and help you see and help you, because if you can't look and you can't see, how the hell are you going to come to a new idea? How are you going to connect dots that others are missing if you're always looking through the same filtered lenses of this is the way the world is? That's not where genius happens. Genius happens when there's a fluidity, an ability to shift and maneuver. And anyway, so that's the thing. Risingabovethenoise.com. And for sure, if anybody, if they want just a real slap in the face from for almost 40 decades of experience, they should get themselves a copy of Brand Intervention. Get the hardcover copy. It's got great production values. It's got color throughout. It's not your normal. Like I say on the back of the book, I literally say the first book written for CEOs, entrepreneurs, and brands that don't have time to read a book on branding.
I tell you, David, I tell my entire audience, if you're looking to make a difference, if you take a look at all the different things that you're doing today and all the different things that are just what everyone else is doing, everyone is doing email. Everyone is picking up a phone. Everyone is sending out some kind of content. But is it different? What are you doing that's going to really get noticed? And I noticed just by listening to you, David, that I'm going to New York City and I can't wait to find the best bread that's available to me based on looking at these different brands. So I really appreciate you coming on to the show. Everyone here, you can tune in to all the episodes at www.5starbdm. And that is B for brand, D for development, and M for masters.com. Until next time, see you later, David.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Appreciate it, Grant.
No problem.